The billionaire had everything money could buy: luxury cars, a breathtaking mansion, powerful connections, and women constantly fighting for his attention. Yet every night, when the lights went out, he felt completely alone. He had begun to wonder if anyone could ever love him without knowing his bank balance. So one morning, he made a shocking decision. He would disappear from his wealthy life and become someone nobody would want. He shaved his appearance down, dressed in torn clothes, and sat in an old wheelchair, pretending that he was a homeless man who could barely survive. He wanted to find one woman who would see a human being instead of a fortune. But he never imagined that this test would cost him the one thing money could never buy. As he entered a poor neighborhood, hungry and helpless looking, people walked past him without even stopping. Then a young woman named Aria noticed him sitting alone beside the road. She had barely enough money for herself, yet she stopped and asked, "Sir, are you okay?" The billionaire looked up, and for the first time, he felt something he had never felt before. Aria reached into the small cloth bag she carried and pulled out the little food she had saved for herself. She hesitated for a moment, then handed it to him. "You look hungry. Please take this." The billionaire stared at the food in disbelief. In his mansion, people had taken expensive meals from him without ever asking how he felt. Yet this woman, who clearly had very little, was willing to give him what she needed herself. "Thank you," he whispered. Aria smiled. "You don't have to thank me. Everyone deserves to eat." She started walking away, but then noticed his wheelchair again. "Where will you sleep tonight?" she asked. He lowered his eyes and told her he had nowhere to go. Aria felt sorry for him. "I live with my father. Our house is small, but you can stay there tonight." The billionaire immediately became nervous. His plan had been to observe people from a distance, not become part of someone's family. But this was exactly the kind of kindness he had been searching for. "Are you sure?" he asked. Aria nodded. "Yes. I wouldn't feel right leaving you alone out here." And with that, the billionaire followed the woman who had no idea who he really was. Aria's father was surprised when he saw the stranger in the wheelchair standing beside his daughter. "Who is this?" he asked. Aria quickly explained what had happened. Her father looked at the young man carefully, then stepped aside. "We don't have much, but no one should sleep outside when we have a roof." The billionaire lowered his head, pretending to be overwhelmed by their kindness. That night, he slept in their tiny home on a simple mattress. It was nothing like his luxurious bedroom, yet strangely, he felt more peaceful than he had in years. Over the next few days, Aria and her father treated him like family. They shared their food with him, helped him move around, and never once asked about his wealth. The billionaire secretly watched everything. He wanted to believe their kindness was genuine, but one question kept troubling him: what would happen if Aria discovered the truth? Meanwhile, Aria began noticing that he was different from other homeless people. He spoke with unusual confidence, understood expensive things, and sometimes used words that didn't fit his supposed life. One evening, she finally asked, "Who are you really?" The billionaire froze. For the first time, his carefully planned disguise began to crack. The billionaire quickly looked away. "There is nothing to tell," he said quietly. "I lost everything after an accident. My family is gone, and I have no money for the surgery that could make me walk again." Aria's expression softened. She believed every word. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "You shouldn't have to face this alone." Her father overheard them, and immediately decided they had to help. The next morning, he told Aria, "We will find a way to pay for his surgery." Aria was shocked. Their small farm barely provided enough money to survive, yet her father was already thinking about selling part of their land. Meanwhile, the billionaire secretly watched them sacrifice their own future for a man they believed had nothing. His heart began to sink. This was no longer just a test. He was becoming deeply attached to Aria, and every lie he told made the truth harder to reveal. Aria also began falling for him. She admired his patience, his humility, and the way he always thanked her father for every little thing. One evening she sat beside him and said, "I don't care that you're poor or that you may never walk again. I care about the person you are." Those words struck him harder than anything money had ever bought. Aria's words stayed in his mind all night. For the first time, the billionaire realized that he had found exactly what he had been searching for. But there was a terrible problem. Aria was falling in love with a man who did not actually exist. Her father began selling vegetables, livestock, and even a portion of their land to raise money for the surgery. Every coin they earned was carefully saved for him. The billionaire watched their sacrifices in silence, feeling more guilty every day. Then one afternoon, Aria's father returned home holding an envelope. "We finally have enough to begin the surgery," he said proudly. The billionaire's heart sank. He could have paid for the operation 1,000 times over without noticing the costs. Instead, this humble family had sacrificed almost everything for him. He knew he could not keep the secret forever. That evening, he asked Aria to sit with him. "There is something you need to know about me." Aria smiled and held his hand. "Whatever it is, you can tell me." He took a deep breath, ready to confess everything. But before he could speak, her father entered the room with devastating news. Her father looked exhausted when he entered the room. "I sold the last valuable piece of our land," he said. "Now we finally have enough money for your surgery." The billionaire felt as if the floor had disappeared beneath him. That land was their family's only inheritance, and they had given it up because they believed his lie. Aria smiled through tears. "You will walk again," she told him. "We will make sure of it." He could not bear it anymore. "Aria, please listen to me. I have been lying to you." Her smile slowly disappeared. "What do you mean?" He gripped the wheels of his chair and whispered, "I am not a homeless man." Aria stared at him, confused. "Then who are you?" He finally confessed that he was a billionaire. His legs had never been injured, and there had been no accident or surgery. He had created the entire story because he wanted to discover whether someone could love him without knowing his wealth. Aria stood frozen. Her father looked at him in disbelief. "You watched us sell our land for a lie?" The billionaire lowered his head. "I never wanted you to sacrifice everything. I only wanted to find true love." But Aria's eyes filled with tears. "You found it," she said. "And then you destroyed it." Aria walked outside without saying another word. Her father remained inside, staring at the billionaire with disappointment. "We gave you food when we barely had enough. We gave you a bed when you had nowhere to sleep. And we sold our land because we believed you were helpless." The billionaire could not defend himself. Every word was true. He had entered their home expecting to test their hearts, but they had shown him a kindness he had never experienced in his wealthy life. He followed Aria the next morning and begged her to listen. "I know I hurt you. I was afraid everyone who came near me wanted my money." Aria wiped away her tears. "So you decided to treat our love like an experiment?" He had no answer. "I loved you when I thought you had nothing," she continued. "But you didn't trust me enough to tell me the truth." The billionaire promised to replace everything her family had lost and offered to give them a beautiful home and a new business. Aria refused. "This isn't about money anymore. You cannot buy back trust." He realized that for the first time in his life, his billions were completely useless. He had found the love he wanted, but his own deception had pushed it away. Aomom.docs. For several days, Aria refused to speak to him. The billionaire returned to the city alone, but the luxury mansion that once felt like a dream now felt empty. His parents noticed the change immediately. "What happened?" his mother asked. He told them everything: the disguise, the village, Aria, her father, and the land they had sold because of his lie. His father was furious. "You had everything, yet you threw it away chasing a test." But the billionaire knew the truth. He had not lost Aria because she was interested in money. He had lost her because he had treated her trust like an experiment. Still, he could not forget her kindness. So he returned to the village, not with expensive cars or bodyguards, but alone. He stood outside Aria's small home and said, "I don't expect you to forgive me. I only came to apologize." Aria stepped outside but remained silent. He continued, "I will restore every piece of land your father sold. I will also help your family rebuild, but I will never ask you to love me again." Aria looked at him for a long moment. "Why are you doing this?" she asked. He answered, "Because you helped me when you believed I was worthless. You deserve justice, even if I never become part of your life again." Aria did not answer immediately. She had spent days wondering whether she could ever trust him again. Finally she said, "I don't need a mansion. I don't need expensive clothes or a life that looks perfect from the outside. I only wanted honesty." The billionaire nodded. "Then let me prove that I can give you that." He kept his promise. He restored the land her father had sold and helped him rebuild the farm without asking for anything in return. He also began visiting hospitals and shelters, where he met people who were genuinely struggling with disabilities and poverty. For the first time, he understood how cruel his fake story had been. He had pretended to be helpless while real people lived that reality every day. He decided his wealth had to mean something more than luxury. He created a foundation to provide medical treatment, food, shelter, and opportunities for people who had nowhere else to turn. Aria watched the changes from a distance. She could see that he was no longer trying to impress anyone with money. He was trying to become a better man. One evening he returned to her father and said, "I cannot change the past, but I can spend the rest of my life making sure my mistake brings something good into this world." Aomom.docs. Months passed, and the billionaire's life changed completely. He no longer measured people by their clothes, cars, or bank accounts. He spent his fortune helping families who were struggling, especially people who needed medical treatment but could not afford it. His foundation provided surgeries, food, shelter, training, and a chance to start again. Aria slowly began to see the man behind the mistake. One evening, she found him sitting outside her father's farm, just as he had once sat beside the road pretending to be helpless. "You came back," she said. He smiled. "I never really left." Aria sat beside him. "I still remember everything you did. I don't think I can ever forget the pain." He nodded. "You shouldn't. I don't want you to forget. I want to spend my life proving that I learned from it." Her father eventually forgave him, not because of his money, but because he saw genuine change in his heart. Aria finally gave him another chance, but with one condition. No more secrets. He smiled and promised, "Never again." The billionaire had started his journey believing money was the only reason people loved him. He ended it discovering something far more valuable. True love cannot be bought, kindness cannot be measured, and a person's worth is never determined by what they own. If you enjoyed this story, like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories.